Good morning, buckos. Welcome to Morning Coffee with Joshua, where we'll be trying out a new video format, drinking some coffee, and reading the news. First, we'll open up Al Jazeera, English. Between life and death, rescued migrants recall Libya Hell. Oh, yeah, right. So after Gaddafi, Libya's been even worse, and that's been in the news lately. Let's check that out. Libya is a major gateway for African migrants by hoping to reach Europe, but they face unimaginable horrors in the country. Oh man, I see. So they're traveling through Libya in order to reach Europe, maybe southern Italy, by Faras Ghani. All right. And then the photograph has a caption. The migrants and refugees said that they left late at night, unsure of whether they will survive to see the next sunrise. Shit. All right, let's go. On board the Ocean Viking in the Mediterranean, 42-year-old Florent took off his jacket, knelt on the floor of the Ocean Viking, a migrant rescue vessel, and let out a roar. He looked up, index fingers pointing to the sky as tears rolled down his cheeks, trickling between the grease stains and cracked, dry skin on his face. His eyes were red. Not least from the trauma of being out in the sun, but for more than 36 hours spending 5 years, but for more than 36 hours after spending 5 years in Libya. If I die right now, I'll die with no regrets. I'll have managed to escape Libya. It was hell, nothing less than hell. Florent, from Cameroon, told Al Jazeera that after being rescued together with 89 other migrants and refugees from an overcrowded rubber boat in distress in the central Mediterranean, if the Libyans Coast Guards come on board right now, I will smash my head into that wall, slit my throat, and jump in the water. That will be so much better than going back to Libya, he said, the quaver in his voice evident despite the smile that belied the pain, agony, and distress of the last 5 years spent in the North African country. Behind Florent was Karim, a 16-year-old from the Ivory Coast, and that's in sub-Saharan Africa. Yeah, that's of course it is. Whose dream of playing football in Europe led him to run away from home in 2016 without telling his parents. Oh my God. My mom did that too, but she ended up telling her parents. Wearing Juventus Football Club track bottoms, Kareem had a wide smile on his face, more of relief than anything else, as he queued up for registration. You see this, he said, pointing to his shoulder? This is where a Libyan stabbed me when I asked him for money for the work I did for him. He then pointed to his right leg and said, this is where I was shot while waiting for work in Tripoli. There is complete lawlessness there. Everyone has guns and knives. There are no rights for black people, even someone who has been stabbed or shot. Libya acts as a major gateway for African migrants hoping to reach Europe. According to the United Nations, there are more than 40,000 refugees and migrants in Libya. However, a 2018 UN report highlighted that migrants are subject to unimaginable horrors from the time they enter Libya, during their stay and in their attempts to cross the Mediterranean if they make it that far. These people arrive in Libya fleeing poverty, conflict, war, forced labor, female genital mutilation, corrupt governments, and personal threats. Just the will to survive drives them away from the home into Libya, transiting through various countries on the way. Some arrive in Libya by choice, others by force. For some, Libya is a country of destination and not transit. So they're going to go live in Libya. The promise of livelihood forces the testing and exhausting journey from home, unaware of what waits them en route and also when they set foot in Libya. And then the photograph is captioned, migrants being rescued from a boat in distress in the Mediterranean. You know, I think if your photograph needs a caption, then you need a better photograph. This journey is horrendous. It is perilous and very challenging, Mikhail Fark, project coordinator for the medical charity Doctors Without Borders, MSF, on board the Queen Viking, told Al Jazeera. People generally have to deal with criminal networks and traffickers. There is extortion, abuse, physical and sexual violence, and arbitrary detention where people are held for ransom, forced to contact their families to send money to secure their release. And once they arrive in Libya, they face the same situation. Libya, a large oil producer, has been engulfed by chaos since 2011 when longtime leader Muammar Gaddafi was killed in an uprising. It is now split between two rival administrations: the internationally backed Government of National Accord, GNA, led by Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj, and the House of Representatives, allied to renegade military commander Khalifa Haftar and his Libyan National Army, LNA. About 4,500 people are currently held in official detention centers across Libya. Thousands more are held in prisons run by armed groups. Both types are said to be overcrowded with unhygienic and inhumane conditions, with abuse and violence rampant. There is a shortage of food and drinking water, but an abundance of torture and forced labor. These detention centers are not safe from the conflict either. One center in the eastern Tripoli suburb of Tadjoura. I think you can hear my roommate pouring his cornflakes in the background. One center in the eastern Tripoli suburb of Tadjoura was bombed earlier this year, killing at least 50 migrants and refugees and wounding more than 30. Alright, so I'm just gonna kind of skim through the rest of the article. Gunshots, physical and sexual abuse, oil rigs, and then we'll just skip to the end for now. In life, when you see you've lost everything and you're not afraid of anything anymore, Sao said with a smile, you don't see the waves, you just see a boat. And that's your chance to get freedom again, far away from Libya. Now, I don't normally encourage skimming news stories, I encourage reading them, but this is television, so I want to keep up a brisk pace. Anything else on Al Jazeera? India's parliament approves contentious citizenship bill. So I'm not actually going to click on the article. I'm just going to summarize my memory of what it's about. In India, they've just, it looks like, passed a bill where people who belong to persecuted religious minorities from neighboring countries can much more easily become Indian citizens. And the reason that it's controversial is that none of the persecuted religious groups are Muslims. For example, the Rohingya in Myanmar, Burma. So the bill is seen as divisive. I have an Indian friend who's very pro-Modi. There's more than one side to the story, but it's definitely caused some international controversy. Greta Thunberg named 2019 Time Person of the Year. Well, she's one of the most memorable people of the year. What else have we got? UK braces for critical election called to break Brexit deadlock. All right, let's see what we've got on any of my other news apps. Wait, this is test video. Okay, here we go. We've got, let's read some Vice news. Two shooters targeted in the Jewish deli in Jersey Two shooters targeted the Jewish deli in Jersey City. Jeez. Judging by the headline, let's see what happened. The shooters who barricaded themselves inside the Jewish deli in Jersey City had singled out that particular business as a target. All right, so they engaged in an hours-long battle with law enforcement after killing a police detective, but were there any murdered civilians is what I'm looking for. Didn't use the word you know what, this is probably, it's probably a horrible situation, but we can move on to something with some more long-term relevance. It's tragic, but in a way that happens every day all over the world. Don Jr. thought it was a good idea to kill a treasured sheep on his Mongolia vacation. Nah. Trump is still going at China, just overtook. Turkey is the world's biggest jailer of journalists. Oh, yeah, okay. I'm just going to leave that headline to stand, but China did just overtake Turkey as the world's biggest jailer of journalists. We have the UK's okay. All right, so let's see if we can open up a third news app and look at some different perspectives. Now, I'm from Canada, so now we're going to look at the CBC. U.S. documents describe an Afghan war and the cheap that cost Canada dearly. All right, Greta Thunberg. Slow news day, guys. All right. Has been on his best behavior for the Brexit election, and it's working. Boris Johnson. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Um, Alberta oil international audiences don't care about any of this shit. All right, let's close up with the Guardian. European Green Deal will change economy and solve emergency. I don't know about that, guys. Myanmar acting San Suu Kyi tells court genocide claims factually misleading. All right. Last campaign day. Well, we'll see who the new prime minister is soon. My dad's a UK citizen, so it's possible that Boris Johnson will remain his prime minister, or he might have an interesting new situation to contend with. I want to end this video on a good note, so for some reason I've got the Infowars app sitting on my phone. Let's see what Infowars has to say. The Alex Jones. Okay, is there like a feed here? News. There we go. I'm just gonna see if there's anything like super interesting, because a lot of Infowars stories are very inflated. Let's see, for example, Gender Neutral Day named 2019 Word of the Year. Whatever you think about that, it's a non-story. Oh, here we go. Okay, U.S. announces new anti-Iran sanctions. Pompeo accuses Iranian airline of role in proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. The United States Treasury announced new sanctions on 5 Iranian entities, 2 vessels, and 1 individual on Wednesday. New sanctions come less than a day after Iran's foreign ministry issued a travel advisory urging Iranian nationals not to visit the United States, given what it said was America's cruel and one-sided laws toward Iranians. The press statement, the Treasury said that Iranian businessman Abdul Hussein Qadri and his shipping companies, including Qadri Jahan Darya Co. and Maritime Silk Road LLC, were being designated over the alleged support for the... Okay. I'm just trying to see if there's anything like really solid to this. Well, I didn't think this article would be boring. Okay, so they're just reversing their Iran policy a little. Okay. And finally, Trump impeachment. Majority of voters object. Who knows? You know, you can make a poll that says anything. See, like, leftist triggered by Trump candy bars. What kind of thing? Like, this is the info war for your mind? It's just nothing. It's bullshit. Like, they don't even have enough content to have an info war all the time. At least they're not able to find it. Let's cleanse our palates with the Google News grab bag. Mac Pro maxes out at $73,000. Oh, here we go. All right. I was closing something Canadian. Cannabis and driving study casts doubt on zero tolerance limits for THC. An expert explains why he sees zero tolerance limits for THC as excessive and not scientifically based. People using a driving simulator showed no signs of impairment a day after they smoked cannabis, though they still tested positive for THC, its main psychoactive component, a recently published paper says. The research has implications for laws and workplace rules that require no trace of THC, which Scott MacDonald, a retired professor at the University of Victoria, oh, that's where I dropped out of, calls non-scientific. I consider it one of the biggest myths about cannabis that there are a 24-hour hangover effects that are measurable, he said. When people smoke cannabis, they're only impaired for a short period of time. You could have THC in your bloodstream, but you're not a danger. So, alright guys, you obviously shouldn't drive while high, but 24 hours later, you are golden. The exception is if you were using some kind of edibles or tincture, which do tend to have a brain fog type hangover afterward. I recommend just smoking. Vaping is definitely a worse experience. It's arguably better for you, and it's a little more cost effective. It'll get you more high more quickly, but But I think smoking is the standard for a reason. Thank you guys. Don't forget to leave your comments and thoughts in the comments, like, subscribe, and also pimp this channel to all of your friends. You have an excellent rest of your day.